Yes, hello everybody. I am Bjorn Buchner. I am the lead UI UX designer at Guerrilla. And together with my team, I'm responsible for all of the menu and the HUD that you see in our games.
My name's Brian Roberts. I am a principal game designer with Guerrilla Games. My preferred pronouns are he, him. I have a goatee beard. I am short, white, and bald. And I currently and usually wear black.
Hi, I'm Jay Justice. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a dark-skinned black person with natural kinky curly hair, and I'm wearing a red shirt, and I'm hanging out in my little office corner. I do cosplay as well as editing and consulting in video games and comic books and literature, and just all kinds of fun things. And I'm also an advocate for marginalized people. I love to help people in any way that I can and make people feel welcome in fandom spaces.
What inspired you to become sort of the advocate for accessibility and helping out players who might have impairments and really pushing this topic forward?
Well, I've been a Black woman for my whole life, and I've constantly been dealing with people telling me that I didn't belong in fandom spaces. And I was diagnosed with a disability as a small child. So the more I wanted to play games, the more I realized that it was something that wasn't affecting just me. It was a lot of other people. And I think the thing people need to realize that if something is accessible to a marginalized population, you've increased the quality of it for everyone. It's going to benefit everyone. It's like a curb cut at a sidewalk. Yes, it's easier for wheelchairs, but it's also easier for people with strollers. It's easier for people who are delivering groceries. It's easier for people who are working. Like, you're making access for what you think is a small population, but you're actually broadening access for everybody.
Yeah, and of course, from my point of view, it's similar because, of course, every day I'm considering like, hey, how can I make sure that our players are well informed and they have all of the information that they need in order to make decisions in the game, right? Which outfit am I gonna equip to battle and so on, but also to make sure that when we come up with a new feature or so, how you sort of interact with the game, like which buttons, that is sort of ergonomically appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, I have much the same issues. As I say, I do a lot of the control structure, so finding out how people want to interact with the game, and particularly when you give them more options and different ways to set up the game, that becomes quite challenging. Also, the idea of basically giving these people the options and then actually taking away options, for instance, like what we've done before is have auto sprint, for instance. It's a very, very small scale example of it. It's like, well, that's one button less that we have to think about, and that's one button less the player has to think about if that's what they want to do. Technically, they're sacrificing a small level of control, but we try to balance that out.
What's funny, as someone who uses accessibility tools every day, it's not so much a sacrifice, it's oh, thank goodness this game is letting me decide how much I have to think about what I'm doing to get to the objective. And so if you allow someone to save a click or to save a button press, you're enabling them to do more in the game than they would have without that option. So it's really fantastic.
That's sort of the way we kind of want to think about it. It's like, that was when I looked at the controls, particularly for removing things, or what we could do automatically for the player. It was very much of well, now we have our entire, because at this point we had most of the game features already in. It was a case of well, okay, which ones can we remove and get away with it? Which ones can I automate without anything being too in your face? Because there is an element, as you say, of you want to have one less thing to think about, but you don't want that to spoil the game in any way.
And that's the thing people don't understand about accessibility options. No one is taking away your ability to play this game the way that you want to play it. By building the options the way that you have, you allow players to really customize their choices in the game and how they want to interact with it. It's part of the game. It doesn't feel like you're being taken out of the experience. The immersion is not broken. There's just so many ways to play this game. There's no wrong way to play the game, and that's what I love about it. So.
I was going to ask you what options you actually used for this.
So many. So I definitely use a lot of the controls that allow you to switch from a hold to a tap or a toggle.
Yeah.
I definitely use the subtitles, and I love that you can make them bigger. I use so many things. I'm probably forgetting some, but I play it on normal. But I do as many of the accessibility options as I think that I will need to get through the game.
I think what I like in our approach so far is that even if it's sort of content that is a bit more difficult, or should I say, maybe towards the end of the game or a bit more hardcore, like it doesn't matter. Like if you want to turn on some of these settings, then it's fine. I think we are quite lenient in also with the button mapping. Like if you want to put this jump on L2, whatever, fine, go for it, because it's almost impossible for us to predict like what would work best for you, and it changes as well. And I think that's a very good part of sort of how we approach the button remapping, or perhaps like our accessibility settings in general. And I think it comes through in the final game as well.
I think it has its own built-in challenges that are like challenges of gameplay and not challenges of access. I think that's the big difference, because a lot of people equate easy mode with accessibility, and while they can work together, they're not the same thing. There are definitely ways to play the harder modes while still using accessibility tools, and I think that's a really great balance that you guys have made with the game.
I think what you mentioned, Jay, with sort of like it can be challenging, but the challenge should not be in the access part. Resonates quite strongly with me as well, because basically most of what I do in my day-to-day is, on the one hand, I'm collaborating with the game designers, and they try to make a very engrossing, very interesting gameplay that you can sort of like keep doing and not get bored of it. And basically what my challenge is really is to make sure that everyone can enjoy that challenge, but that they are not sort of like struggling with fiddly buttons, or that something is not clear, what should I be doing right now? No, that should be clear. Like you should clearly understand sort of the rules of the game, but the challenge should really come from fighting this really epic machine, or a challenging encounter or something like that. I thought it was interesting.
I do love that the challenge never comes from not being able to find anything in the game, because at least you can have it set to that. Oh yes, there's a marker here. And I'm someone who came from the era of games where every single game had the same mini map of a little radar in the corner with the circle, and this is you. So making the switch from that typical style of like, this is where you are, to a navigation bar, I was like, oh, this is different. But it kind of, I felt my brain click, and I was like, okay, I got it now. I'm actually able to find my way around so much easier in this game. And I'm the person who gets lost very easily in video games. So I really appreciate the navigation tools so much.
I think it's interesting as well, because for Forbidden West we actually have two modes of navigation that you can choose from, and that also stems from acknowledging that some people might get a lot of joy out of figuring stuff out on their own and just sort of like walking randomly and finding things and not being guided so much, whereas other people go like, right, I just want to find what I'm looking for, and please guide me
just
towards
tell
the
me
best
where
way
it
to
is.
get. Yeah, exactly. So I think those modes are very successful, and I've seen like less people just being stuck on the top of a mountain, let's say. So although I cannot avoid like that in all cases, I guess. Yeah. No hard feelings if you do.
Oh no. So I don't think this is an accessibility option per se, but there are so many options in the game that can help people who need accessibility. Like, for example, the creating a job function, because I never would have found some of these resources without the ability to tell the thing, okay, this is what I'm looking for. Where is that? So do you guys consider that just part of the game design, or do you consider that an accessibility option?
It was actually as a response to the fact that exactly what you said, and it's a carry on for that. And I understand that you could see it as an accessibility option. I don't see it that way necessarily, but that's true.
I don't see it that way either, but I think it helps people in a similar fashion, and people who resist thinking, oh, I don't want anything to help me. I just want to just throw me in the game blindfolded and naked. I don't want any assistance. Sometimes some built-in things can be really helpful.
You've obviously been in this industry for a little bit now, and undoubtedly you've probably seen recurring sort of themes, or maybe even like things change over time, especially like on the subject of accessibility, of course. I was kind of wondering if if you had any insights you could share with us.
I think that accessibility has become something that is more expected now. Like, instead of people just assuming that accessibility is something that doesn't need to be happening unless you're like, oh, that's just for big, multi-million-dollar companies. No,
Right.
there are actually lots of free tools on the internet that you can use and learn how to implement these things in your games. Even if you are just an indie developer, if you are a single dev working by yourself.
Of course, we have a lot of players that play our games, play many games. I was wondering if they can sort of like help out in some way to further accessibility in games, or sort of maybe as more like a community, and how they deal with the topic, think about the topic.
Gamers can make a huge positive impact on the community, on accessibility as a whole, because the voice that you have online, even if you're just one person with like 2 followers, you can be a positive person in the community. If you see someone who is sharing a negative opinion about accessibility and saying that it's not necessary or that it's just easy mode, what I like to call it is plant a flower. Be welcoming, be inclusive, like be a positive force in the fandom. It doesn't take much, just having a little joy in your heart and quick Twitter fingers.
All right, I think that rounds us up for today. Thank you so much to the both of you for having this talk, and in particular, of course, our excellent guest, Jay. If you are interested in finding out more about Jay, her links for the social media are in the description. And of course, also many thanks to all of the fans of our game.
PlayStation